Hello and welcome to The View from 4 feet and 3 inches. I'm your host, Cassidy Huff. Oh, I can't say my name. I'm your host, Cassidy Huff, and today I am wearing a white sweater. I'm wearing my black rimmed glasses and my silver nose ring. My blonde hair, which is shoulder length, is tied back into a bun, and I have a white background behind me. And whenever you see that white background, you know it's because I have a wonderful virtual guest with me, and today's virtual guest is Aubrey. Hi, Aubrey.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are
I am
you?
doing well. And just for a visual descriptor,
Thank you so much for being
of
here.
course, of course. I'm so excited. A huge fan of your work.
Thank you. Yeah, go for it. Give him a visual description.
Just a quick visual description. I'm wearing a yellow shirt. Have black skin. I am wearing black headphones. I have some brown rimmed glasses and short black curly hair. And I'm just super excited to be here today.
I'm so excited you're here. So this is kind of like a moment for me, as I was explaining to you before you got on, because I've been following you for years. I think you were one of the first creators with dwarfism that I started following when I was younger. So this is a time for me.
I feel like it's the
I'm having a little fangirl moment. So I'm so glad you're here.
no, I feel like this is like an Avengers team up, like two baddies joining together for a
Yeah.
joint slay moment.
Yeah. I love it. I love a slave moment. Okay, so for those who may not know you, do you want to tell the viewers and listeners a little bit about who you are, what you're all
Of
about?
course. My name is Aubrey Smalls. I am a filmmaker with Dwarfism and host of a series on social media called Dwarfism History, which is where I cover people with dwarfism throughout history who have done incredible, iconic things, from like ancient civilization to the film industry to pop culture to musicians to just everyday people. I love celebrating the diversity in our community. I think there's so many amazing people with dwarfism or just short statured people in general that are incredible and deserve the recognition. And yeah, it's been so much fun getting to build up that platform. I think there's like between TikTok and Instagram, like 500,000 people following along. So I feel very honored to be able to share this part of my community that I often don't see represented with other people. And I'm working on a documentary called Dear Average Height People, which is about dwarfism and dwarfism culture. And it's being made by people with dwarfism, and it's going to feature a cast and a crew of people with dwarfism as well. And I'm just so excited to keep working on that and spreading the good word.
I love. Okay, so I have some questions for you that I just genuinely am curious about. Um, how did dwarfism history, the the podcast, I guess, or the segment, whatever you want to call it, how did that start?
So I started working on my documentary in 2021 or the end of 2020. And through that process was doing a lot of research on dwarfism and dwarfism throughout history. And in efforts to promote our initial fundraiser for the documentary, I started posting on social media about the film and then about things that we'd be talking about in the film. And that over time led to this kind of series I was doing where I was talking about dwarfism history. And I believe at the beginning of 2024 is when I officially created the account Dwarfism History, because I was like, oh, this is like can be its own dedicated thing. And from there, yeah, it's just blossomed into its own creation that spawned a podcast, a YouTube series. Um, yeah, it's been a journey, but it's been a fun one.
I love it. So I have dwarfism, and I have to say, maybe it's just because I'm young and ignorant, but never once was I like, let me go research other people throughout the years who've had dwarfism. Like, never once have I even thought about that. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because we live in like a non-disabled, able-bodied world, average height world. But like I have never thought about people in the past who have been like change makers who've had dwarfism or really any disabilities that I've been like, let me look at that. Other than like the popular ones that we're taught
Yeah.
about, like Helen Keller or people like that, where we're like, ah, yes, disabled and contributed to society. Also, white woman, but um, those kinds of things. So, are you like a historian? Do you like history?
Yes, I wasn't always a huge fan of history growing up, and I think through dwarfism history, it's really made me so fascinated. Because
Well, that makes sense because you're like you're seeing yourself represented.
yeah, just learning about new stories and periods of history that haven't really been talked about, and certainly not within the dwarfism space, even let alone with average able-bodied people. I think dwarfism in and of itself is still such a like tucked away kind of part of the disabled community. I think sometimes when I think it's getting a little bit better now, but I think when it comes to especially media representation, dwarfism is usually just like one type of person or one type of body type, or we're only seen in certain circumstances. So then when it comes to the history, it was just really fascinating for me to realize that there was so much more that we've been doing, so much more that we've accomplished. I think that when it comes to the discrimination and ableism and media representations that we face as little people, it's really been beneficial to explain the context of where the dwarfism community has been and what we are capable of to kind of counter that instead of just being like ableism towards little people is bad or making fun of little people is bad. I think really showing people how much we're capable of has helped a lot because then people are like, wait, then why are little people only shown this way then? If like they can do X, Y, and Z and they've done X, Y, and Z, and why aren't their stories being told? So it's been very interesting for me to find all of those people throughout history that may not have had the chance to share their stories then, to hopefully help share their stories now.
Yeah, I mean, like if I learned about dwarfism or people with dwarfism in history, maybe I would have liked it a little more
Right,
as a
right,
child.
right.
Like maybe I would have paid attention a little more if I was like, oh, they kind of look like me. Then I would have been like,
I
wow,
know.
this
I
is
agree.
great. I want to learn more about that.
all I learned
Why aren't we talking about that?
all I learned about in history was war and death and destruction. And if they could have sprinkled some little people in there, that would have been more entertaining for me. But
Some like
alas,
cool people. Yeah, let's learn about that, please.
for
Thanks.
sure.
So when I was little, all I was seeing, I was part of LPA for a very short amount of
Hmm.
time. LPA, for those who don't know, it's Little People of America. It's the organization that a lot of people with dwarfism and little people use to go to conventions, meet each other, connect, um, find resources. We have like Facebook groups for different chapters. So I was involved in LPA when I was really young because that was really the only resource that my mom, who is able bodied and average height, was given. So I'm the only little person in my family. And they were like, we don't know, stick her with other ones, I guess. So I had a really bad experience when I was little, mainly because I don't have achondroplasia,
Right.
which is the most common type of dwarfism. I have a really, really rare type of dwarfism. And so the dwarfism hierarchy, I guess, if that's what you want to call it, played a big role in my childhood
Right.
because I was being bullied by other little people, and my mom was being bullied by other parents because she was average height and I didn't have ACON. And so I'm really interested in what your experience was like as a child, both with non-disabled average height people and also in the dwarfism community, if you had any.
I too was in LPA briefly as a child. I think the thing that I wish more people would understand is that little people are just people, and you can't always just shove a bunch of people together just because they
That
share
hard.
one thing and expect everyone to get along. You see, I mean, dwarfism is just one thing, part of our lives. It's not everything. It's not all consuming. We still have personalities and interests outside of that, and entire lives and experiences that have nothing to do with our dwarfism. I grew up in a family of all able-bodied, average-height people. We had a few family friends that had dwarfism, but they were all much older than me. Um, and we just like didn't see them very often. But yeah, it's very interesting, I think, growing up with dwarfism, especially because I grew up in a family that was very we they didn't deny the fact that I had dwarfism, but it was very much so a thing where they never they were always very accommodating, always helped me find like accessibility to items and whatnot. And yeah, the rest of the world doesn't always see you as just like everyone else. Um, so I think that was very interesting, and I think a lot of the stuff I experienced as a child when it comes to how other people treated me, I still realize to this day. Like I'll randomly just on a Tuesday night be like, "That was weird when that kid said that to me when I was 9," or "That was strange that that person felt entitled to do that," or so I think it's one of those things that you're constantly processing. But yeah, it's very interesting always hearing about every little person's experience growing up or in the LPA or um but yeah, the LPA we were able to find some like doctors and we were able to make some friends through the organization. So there are always positives to these things, but I do
100%.
hope that maybe in the future there's even more groups out there, more organizations for people with dwarfism in the United States and everywhere. So it's not just like a one-stop shop.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I by no means ever try to tear LPA down, but I do want to give people like a real kind of like this was my experience. Go do your experience. However, I'm sure my experience would be different now as an adult. Um, but I also went to like camps for kids with disabilities, like summer
Mm,
camp and things like that. And um, I went to Skeletal Dysplasia Week because that was the week that I fit into, and almost everybody there also had Acon, and I was
right,
like, so I'm the odd one out again.
right.
But I did make some friends through that, and I still have lifelong friends that do have Acon. So again, people are people. Little people are also
Oh
people.
yeah.
And some are great and some are not and some are fine. So so you just got to find your people that like you and click with
Hmm.
you and vibe and um so what was your experience like growing up in school?
So I was homeschooled, so that was definitely a little bit easier.
Okay.
Um I did go to community college when I was older. Like when I was a teenager because I graduated high school earlier. Um and I always wonder because we used to I grew up performing. My family owned a circus, so I grew up like performing in the circus everywhere.
Right, I forgot about this.
So we
Yes.
would sometimes go and do like shows at like school assemblies and stuff. And it always made me wonder if I would have been bullied in school or if I would have been popular because I would go to these schools and they would be obsessed with me. Like they'd be so obsessed with me. But I know so many little people and so many like I'm also black and so many like black people who were like horrifically bullied in school. So I always wonder what that would have been like the public school system for me. But and I mean, it wasn't every school that they were obsessed with me. There was definitely some schools where they were like awful and like not nice to me at all. But it was just very interesting. I really wonder what that experience would have been like. But what was it like for you?
Not great.
Yeah.
I went to public school for 12 years. Um, it I don't want to say I was bullied every day because I wasn't, but there were some years that were worse than others.
Right.
Kids as they grow up are worse at different times. Um, but yeah, I think my mom was my advocate 99 but 100% of the time.
Yeah.
she was a really, really strong advocate for me. At some points, they wanted to put me in special ed, and my mom was like, "Okay, test her then.
Right.
Like, she doesn't need to be in
Right.
there." Not tearing down anybody who was in
Of
special
course
ed, but
not.
it
No,
just
yeah.
wasn't for me. I just wasn't, I didn't belong in there. And so they were always kind of at a loss with what to do with me. They were like, she looks one way, but her brain is another way,
Right.
and she's testing this way, and she's also ahead of her grade level.
Right.
So, like, what do we do? I was also having surgery every six
Yeah, that
months.
was me
And
as well.
so yeah, so like I was in and out of the hospital, which meant I had to miss
Yeah.
school. And a lot of those were very strategically planned. So April and October were my surgery months. And they would strategically plan my surgery in April so that it happened to fall during spring
Yeah.
break. Um, and so that I wouldn't miss any school. And then during October is when I would have to miss school. So then it was like weird for me to have to make friends because I was like gone,
Right.
and then I would come back, and then I would be gone again. And then kids were like, right, but you look different.
Right.
So, like, I don't really want to be friends with you because what if people bully me?
Right.
So, it was an interesting time. I want to talk about your time growing up in the
Right.
circus because I think that is, I mean, not news to you. I think that is a very unique way to grow
It
up,
was.
especially as a little person.
Yeah.
So, did you ever, I mean, was it just a thing where you were like growing up and they were like, so you perform, like that's your thing? Or like did you ever feel pressure to perform? Was it like
No, it was what my parents did. It
what
was
was
like
that?
joining the family business. I know it's like the circus is so different, but
Mm,
it would be like if your parents, had their own company and eventually you got old enough and you were like, hey, can I do this as well? My mom had toured with the circus before meeting my dad, and then she married my dad, who was not in entertainment at all. And then they started doing, my dad,
that's so
I
cute.
know, my dad actually taught at a school for people with disabilities or people with disabilities who came from like rough situations, so maybe like juvenile or like, um, yeah, just who needed a little bit of extra help. And
That's ironic.
I know. So he taught for most of my childhood because my parents did the circus part time. Um, they were teachers and then did the circus part time. We would stay at home, me and my siblings being babysat while they would do different events. And sometimes we would go and watch them. So we would be like sitting on the side of the stage, watching my parents perform at like various events, or they used to do like fire shows where like my dad's like a fire eater and like they would just do like crazy stuff, and or like stilt walking, or we used to live in Louisiana, that's where I was born, and my mom did because in the circus she learned how to make her own costumes, and they have to like back in the day they went through clown college, which was a real thing where they taught you how to like do everything. Like you had to learn how to make your own costumes, you had to learn how to make your own
Clown
wigs.
college is still a thing. I know people who go to clown
Yeah.
college.
So it was like, and you didn't always like make it. Like they would do like a test, and you like if you didn't pass, you couldn't join the show. She was with Ringling Brothers, so they got married, and then at a certain age, us kids were just kind of like, we want to join, like we want to try something, like we don't want to be left out. So my parents just like let us develop skills over time and let us try like everything. And we each like picked our own thing. So I loved doing spinning plates. I was always like a really eccentric child, so I loved doing comedy. I picked up poi. I picked up like magic. My sister ended up doing contortion and tight wire, and me and my sister did ballet for like 10 plus years. And my sister ended up getting her associates in ballet, so she always did like a lot of like dance focused stuff. And she still is like a juggler, and she does aerial. I have a brother who did acrobatics, and he just like loved to do trampolines and like be flipping all about. So just over time, we would just do like little events here and there. And then when we got older, when we were like teenagers, that's when it started becoming like more of an actual job where we could actually like, my parents like obviously let us make money off of it, and we would get hired for stuff. And Yeah, did so many different types of events, whether that be like performing in stadiums or birthday parties or holiday events or for like celebrity kids' birthday parties or school carnivals or like sometimes when churches would open, they would hire a family to come do shows for their church, like attendees. It was like just like the most random selection of events. A lot of like corporate events. So like if they have like their annual gala dinner, they would have us come and do a performance for them. Just like so many different types of things. And I did that up until I was probably like, I think the last event I probably did, I was like 21. So like 6, 7, 8 years ago.
So like fairly recently.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 28 now. I think so. That was like 7 years ago. I think the last event I did. So
That's still fairly.
it's
That's
still
within the
recent,
last
within the last
decade.
decade. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, that's not like so far out there. It probably
Oh yeah,
feels
it
like
feels like
it,
forever
but
ago.
you know, yeah, you were like, I don't do that
That's
anymore.
not. It's like something that you're like, oh yeah, I can do that.
Oh yeah, I forgot I had that skill. Not random. I can spin plates.
No, when
Interesting.
people ask me like where to get the confidence from, or like I do a lot of speaking events now for Dwarfism history, and people are like, "Don't you get nervous before?" And I'm like, "No." And then I'd be like, "Oh, it's because I like grew
No,
up like being like a child, like on the radio promoting a circus,
I was
or
12 and I was performing for
I
stadiums.
was
So
12 and
no,
doing 6 shows a day."
yeah, so no, I don't get nervous. Actually, this is
Yeah,
easy.
no,
This
yeah,
is
this is it's easy and it's fun. And when you're in a family circus, you
yeah, it's easy and it's fun, and you don't have to do anything except get up there and
and
talk.
when you're in a
Now,
show, it's a collaborative effort, which has its pros and cons. So the con really is just like you don't have full control, which is like part of being in a group effort, of course. But now it's fun because I can control all parts of how I want to present things, and I don't have to run it by 6 other people.
yeah, that's true. I never thought about it that way. I've only ever been on stage like by myself. So I'm like, yes, I can control everything all the time. I could not imagine having to be like, can I do this? What about this? What about that?
Yeah,
I just,
yeah,
I'm such like, I grew up the opposite way. So now I'm like, mm-mm,
I love that.
I must be in control at all
No,
times, actually.
that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
That's where we're at. We're on the same now. We're on the same wavelength. So that's how you grew up. How did you get into like the social media activism space?
I had really always wanted to be like an actor. I was a theater kid. Um, I loved
I wonder why.
wonder why. I wonder why. And I think at a certain age, I started auditioning for things and realizing that there was still so much we had to do in terms of representation and roles for people with disabilities and dwarfism specifically. I came from a family of writers, so I eventually was like, I'm gonna start writing. I ended up entering a screenplay when I was like 18 or 19 into a contest that at the time Issa Rae from that show Insecure and so many other things now, she was hosting and I was a runner up for it. And I had written a pilot for a TV show about a little person. And I did it like the night before. Like it was like such a rush effort. And I ended up being a runner up. And I was like, okay, I had my first like meeting in Hollywood about that, and I was like, okay, so I think maybe I can start like doing some more writing and trying to maybe open some doors that way. And then I realized like screenwriters and writers in the industry are treated like dirt, and I was like, I don't. This is not fun for me.
Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. It's they yeah, maybe not. That's it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to open doors. And I was still auditioning for things and just like not really yeah, I think at a certain point I've realized that I'm just not the type of person to I feel like sometimes auditioning is like begging people to accept you. And then you add on disability and being black and especially having dwarfism, which I feel versus some other disabilities, we've been portrayed and shown in such a derogatory, like cartoonish way that I feel like it was like extra hard sometimes to convince people to take us seriously. Like we could perform a monologue from like a Shakespearean play perfectly spot on and you would still get laughed at low key because people just like sometimes really cannot. And it's the same for people behind the desk at these castings. Like just because you're in the industry does not mean you're accepting of other people. Um, so I think at a certain point, when I was 21 or 22, it was just like, I quit. This is just not worth it for me. I'm just starting my life. Like, I would like to explore and just like be a normal person. Um, I ended up moving across country to New York City. Didn't know a single person here. I had visited years and years and years, probably since I was like 18. So I spent like 4 or 5 years visiting for all of my like work breaks. And I had a friend who was going to college here. And I ended up coming for an audition for a show here one year. And it was an audition for roles for little people for this show. And the audition was horrible. It was truly the worst experience. And afterwards, I went out to dinner with one of the little people that I had met there. And she had been living here for like 8 years at the time. And something clicked in my brain when I was like, what? Wait. Because I think as disabled people, we're often told sometimes these big cities are like, it's so inaccessible. It's so this. And it's kind of like, oh, then it's not for me. Like, I can't, like, but she was like, oh, yeah, I've lived here for 8 years. And yeah, it's hard, but like, I love it here. And I was like, oh, like little people can survive in this city. I won't like combust if I move here. So I ended up going home from that audition, breaking my lease, and moving 3 months later. And I'm still friends with that little person. I just saw her the other day. There's so many amazing disabled people here in the city. Um, and after during the during the pandemic, I ended up moving back to Arizona just to be closer with friends and family and started really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And that's where the documentary was kind of born through this desire to create with other people with dwarfism. Since so oftentimes, whether it be reality shows or fictional characters with dwarfism, they're all written through the eyes of able bodied people with like little to no input from people with dwarfism. So the topics that are discussed, the way that we're portrayed, down to the way that we're like shot on camera is all through the eyes of people who likely have never met a little person before this production. Um, so the documentary was born. We were trying to fundraise to meet our initial fundraising goal, and we had like exhausted our social network of people that we knew to donate. So I was like, let me go to TikTok to talk about this project since ultimately the goal with this documentary is not to make it for the disabled community since we already know all of these things, but to educate the people who would laugh if they saw a little person or who have never seen a little person or who have only seen Oompa Loompas or Wizard of Oz depictions of dwarfism or people who are just genuinely curious and like interesting creative art. And I was like, that's the internet. Like that's who we're ultimately going to be bringing this project to. And I started talking about the documentary, started talking about dwarfism in general, started meeting other people with dwarfism on social media, started doing some collabs with them. And that was like 2.5, almost 3 years ago. And over time, it kind of evolved into activism, into dwarfism history was born. Um, and yeah, it's been one of those things that's definitely been a progression over time. Like it never was like I'm coming to TikTok because I was very growing up on the internet. Like people with dwarfism were always made fun of, so I was never one to be like, oh, I'm gonna post on the internet. Like I'm gonna post on social media, and I didn't even have TikTok until I downloaded it once in 2020 and deleted it in like a month
Like everybody
like
else.
everybody else. I was like, I missed the entire first like big part of TikTok. I feel every single day I curse myself for being like, I really thought I was too old for it at the time. I thought it was for actually like 16, 17 year olds. So I was like, oh, I just don't have any interest. And I do think for a certain part of TikTok, it wasn't like there was not a lot of like commentary videos or like it was a lot like more music dance based. But I jumped on the train so late, like at the end of 2022 is when I started posting. So yeah, it's definitely been a progression and something that I'm still learning to this day. Something that I'm very much so a private person, so sometimes being so public is a lot. But it's always been something that has been like day by day. It's evolved over time. It's changed my life in so many amazing ways and introduced me to so many amazing people. So I'm never gonna be upset about it.
I love that. Yeah, I think that social media is definitely a day by day
Yeah.
thing. I mean, it's my full-time job and it's still a day by day thing. Uh, I like have like a content plan. Like I usually plan like a week-ish in advance because I post every day.
Yeah, you're
And
organized.
then some days, yeah, I have to be organized, right? Because it's a business at the end of the day. Like it's my job, so I have to treat it like a job. Um, and so I plan like a week-ish in advance usually, and then some days I'm like, actually, I'm gonna push this topic off because this just happened to me and this is more important. So it's like definitely a day by day
Yeah.
thing. Like you do not just you could try to plan, and I do suggest planning, but sometimes you gotta throw that plan out the window
Yeah.
because you, as a disabled person specifically, like things happen
Things
and you're like,
happen.
actually, let me cover that first.
Hmm.
Um, so what, I mean, I'm sure because you're disabled and I am too, and like I get it, but do you get like a lot of hate? Because I do.
Oh my god, all the time. um,
All the time, every day.
all the time. It is a topic of conversation every single day in therapy. Not every single day in therapy. Every single week in therapy. Um,
I was like, wow, you go to therapy a
every
lot.
day. I'm spending a bag on therapy, I guess. Um, yeah, and a part of the queer community as well. I think that I just get it from all sides, unfortunately. But would I ever change any part of my identity? No. Like I love being black so much. I love being a part of the queer community and I love being disabled, specifically having dwarfism. Like would not have it any other way. It's not me that needs to change. It's the world. Um but I
Agreed.
also receive a lot of love as well. I think social media has helped with that. Just meeting other people who understand what I mean, go through. Um, but yeah, like stepping outside can be a lot. Like I unfortunately have had some very unfortunate incidents that have impacted me and will always have an effect on me, likely. And yeah, I think that's why I feel very passionate about the work that I do and the need for the work that I do. Because I do think that there's a lot of people who, once they know, can become allies. As much as that word is overused, I do think that there, just as there's, awful ableist people out there, there's a huge faction of people who just truly do not know. They're just like, I don't know this information. I don't know that people treat you guys this way. And I think that helps to equip them to fight ableism in their own lives, to stand up for us when we are being targeted in public. And yeah, it's it's a journey. It's a journey for sure. But again, I would never.
Yeah,
I know
I
disabled people
agree.
get.
I think that also, good.
No, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that um people don't know what they don't know, but also in my experience, I've seen that my demographic is kids,
Mm,
like young teenagers.
interesting.
So they for sure don't know. But I think we're seeing a whole another generation that wants to understand, that wants to know, that wants to connect with people that are different than them. And sure, they're being raised by, you know, past generations that have biased mindsets. But at some point, I think this new generation that's coming up is really interesting to me because they are all online. And like you and I got that, I think a little bit, but I think this generation's way different. Like I had in the past probably month or two, I've had 3 different 7-year-olds come up to me and be like, I watch you on YouTube. And I'm like, you are
You
young.
were a child.
What are you doing? But at the same time, they're being exposed to not only me, but my disabled
Right.
friends that are on my YouTube channel like this, and they're being educated, whether they realize it or not, about disability, about differences, about things happening in the world. And that to me, like I don't know what kind of person I would be if that happened to me at that young of an age. Like I would be so far beyond my years right now.
Yeah.
So I think that's the kind of people that we're also affecting is like young, younger children, like young teenagers, young kids. So like yeah, adults, but like you can only do so much with adults. I think the people I focus on educating the most are kids because um they want to learn. Like they have this desire and craving to just gain as much information as they can, and they're the ones that ask questions because they don't feel foolish for asking questions at that age. Like that's just something that they do. So I think that's the most interesting part for me for my social media are the kids that watch me and come up to me in public and ask questions or comment down below and ask questions. Or I mean, you have no idea how many comments I get that then I click on their profile because I'm like, are you kidding? You're asking that question. And then I click on the profile and they're like 13. And I'm like, okay, so you actually are asking that question. That's valid. No, it's okay.
That's so cute.
So is that your experience too? Or do you get more adults that are in your comment
Definitely
sections?
more adults. Definitely. I don't think I've ever had.
Mm,
I mean, obviously, there's young people on the internet, but I have found that I've done some speaking events at colleges, and I definitely think that um, it's always really nice to see so many young people engaged and being so present and trying their best to learn more and to like just like genuinely care. But no, I find that my I'm really lucky to have I think like such an amazing diverse group of people who follow me, from like older people to younger people to people in like every community. Like I really love having like so many
yeah.
people who are in the queer community, so many people who are of other disability types. And I think that's why I have like such a beautiful, diverse group of friends as well, just from the other people that I have found through my own content. I think that's why it helps so much. I try to at least represent a large group of people with dwarfism as well that intersect with different communities as well. So I think I've been fortunate to be able to touch different communities outside of just the disabled community or the black community, like people of all different types, because I try to talk about people who are little people who worked in the publishing industry, or who worked in like the blue collar fields, or who were like handymen, or who were scientists or actors or activists, or civil rights leaders or history buffs. I think that's been able to connect with so many people who have those niche interests. um that's so cute. That's so cute that you have so many young followers. That I think that's
Yeah.
like a such an important. I think that's why representation in general matters so much. I don't think that disability education should have to be a disabled person literally educating you. I think representation oftentimes is the education enough. Just like being like, isn't it normal to have a disabled person in a
Yeah.
setting? Like that can be it sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think us just going to grocery stores and like living our lives out in public and, the times where we're not in front of our phones being like, and this is what my dwarfism is. And let me talk about intersectionality. And even us
Exactly.
just like going out and living our lives is unfortunately and fortunately a form of community or a form of education
Just showing up matters.
because people don't encounter people who look like us on a daily basis. So when we're just out in public, people are like, whoa, we can look different. Like, wild concept.
Exactly.
Humans. Okay, I want to talk about something because I keep getting this question all the time, and you are, I think, the first little person on this
Oh,
podcast,
slay.
besides me, obviously. Um, I get this question literally every day, so I want to hear your uh your advice and also your perspective on this. You probably have done videos on it because I know I've been tempted to. um, the new Snow White movie.
Yes.
What are our opinions? How do we feel?
I think it's a complicated and layered discussion for sure. Um, I think it's one of those things where had I wished that they had cast 7 actors with dwarfism, for sure. But I also think that it's important to look at the broader discussion of this, which is we need better opportunities for people with dwarfism in general. And I don't think it should end at just they didn't cast 7 little people to be in Snow White. So I really hope that this conversation continues past just being upset with, because I feel like it devolved kind of into just being about Disney casting little people for these roles as opposed to what about now? Like even now you kind of see the conversation done. And it's like, did you care about little people getting cast or did you care about little people getting cast to play the 7 dwarves? And in my experience
Mm-hmm.
talking about this situation over the literal years that I've been talking about it, is that I think that it kind of people lost the plot a little bit for that conversation. And I
Mm.
am still going to hopefully see more conversations had about representation for dwarfism in media. I'm still going to be fighting for it. I love talking about the industry that I'm so passionate about, and especially knowing so many talented little people who are working so hard, who are going on auditions all the time, who are getting call back after call back and then not getting it. Um, I know that the potential is out there.
Mm.
Um, but I think the Snow White thing again is just like it's such a layered conversation that I think everyone came at from every single angle. And yeah, that was it's a tough one. That's a tough one. But I think
I know it's a tough one, and the thing that I get asked all the time is because I have the exact same answer. The thing that I get asked all the time is, do you really wish that 7 little people were cast in those roles? Because they're not just 7 little people, they're like 7 mythical creature type,
yeah,
like beings. So then it opens up the conversation of like, is that how we want to be portrayed? Like personally, I don't have the answers. I know you don't either. But I think it's really interesting that non-disabled people are like, "Hey, little person on the internet, you must have all of the answers." Um, so I don't personally know if I got the call back tomorrow, being like, "Hey, you're you're being considered for the Snow White movie." I don't know if I would take that because I've turned down roles for little people, both in film and theater, that I thought reading the script were, portrayed in a derogatory way because they are non disabled people writing a role for
right,
little people. Like, that's automatically like it's what we've been talking about, like you don't understand the experience, so why are you writing the experience? What is going on? Hire an actual little person to write that role, maybe. But I think the most common question I get asked is like, do you really wish that 7 little people were cast in that? Because like then they would be seen as like mythical creatures, which is a stereotype that all of us try to combat every day by being like, hey, actually, I exist in real life and I'm actually not a mythical creature and like I'm a human being. Thanks.
right. I think it's yeah, it's one of the most common questions I get, and I've talked about it at length in so many different forms of media throughout this entire process from the time it was announced in 2019, um, before I even had a social media platform, to now, from YouTube to Instagram to TikTok to Substack to like, and I've learned that people oftentimes ask us these questions, um, looking for us to speak on behalf of everybody, or they their only framework of it is, well, Peter Dinklage said this, and it's very apparent that they don't see
Mhm.
us as individuals, they see us as
Right.
a collective,
Group.
right? um
Mhm.
and then also I find a lot of people just don't like Disney, some for fair reasoning, some for not, and this is just an excuse for them to hop on some type of Disney messed up again. They're trying to be this, this, and this, and they were trying to be woke and ended up costing people jobs. Um, I think there's a lot of misinformation about how that all went down as well. So sometimes trying to respond, even in detail and in depth, goes against everything that they've been fed to by all of these news and creators who are just using the Seven Dwarf plotline to hate on Disney or hate on Rachel Zegler or hate on the project in general. So sometimes it's like I, as a creator and I, as a person, just don't feel the need to have to unpack people's
You're like, what's the
misinformation. I'm
point?
like, that was your fault for falling for propaganda that you didn't look up to see if it was a credible source. Sorry,
Sorry.
that's not my fault. And also, again, it's like if you refuse to look at the bigger picture, then whatever answer I give you is not going to be worth it, because it's not about the seven
Mhm.
dwarves. Like there is a much larger conversation that we should be having when it comes to opportunities for people with dwarfism. And it becomes very apparent, I think, when people ask certain questions about the situation, that they're only looking for us to be like, yes, we want to be mad at Peter Dinklage, or we want to be like, well, that's just like not being fact. And I think that there could have been, as a writer, to performer myself, there were so many opportunities for them to create seven amazing characters with dwarfism that were less just, you know, there for the gag of it all. And
Yeah.
they just weren't interested in doing that. So that's kind of the end of the story. Like, it was no one's fault except the creatives and the producer and the writers, who just wanted to keep those seven dwarf characters one dimensional. Um, and I think that at this point, I'm just ready to move on. The movie's done. It's been done for like four
Yeah.
years.
It's
It's
over.
over. Now what?
Continue.
Now what?
I only ask because I know that all of the comments on this podcast episode are going to be like, she didn't ask about this
Oh, it's I still
the
get
Snow
all
White
of those.
movie. What about the Snow White movie?
I still get all of those comments every single day on anything I post. Even if it's not a question, they'll be like,
Hmm.
"Well, didn't Peter Dinklage take away the jobs from it?" And it's like, I'm not even gonna respond. You saw one
Hmm.
like guy commentary on YouTube who yells at his content and blaming Peter Dinklage, and you believed it. That's not my fault, babe. That's not my fault.
Sorry. Also, go watch like 15 other videos about
Like
this topic,
literally, just
maybe.
search my name in Snow White, and you'll see 50 other videos about that.
Like, maybe let's stop talking about it.
Like
Agreed.
I made a whole video with a chronological
So,
timeline with screenshot evidence and direct quotes, and people still were like refusing to accept it. So that's when I gave up.
you're like, okay, fine. I'm going to stop
Yeah,
then.
I'm
The
gonna
end.
stop now.
So, representation as a whole, in a perfect universe, as a writer, as an actor, as a viewer of any media, what would you want to see as far as representation for disabled people, little people, intersectionality, all of the above?
I think we just need more people in these creative positions in general, so that when they're talking about doing a Snow White movie, or they're talking about doing a Time Bandage remake, or they're talking about doing whatever projects, that there's people with disabilities or people of different experiences in these rooms that will be like, we need to mix it up a little bit. We need to have some more. I think, unfortunately, I think it's like a bigger issue than just Hollywood. I think it's like world views and like movies now that they're spending so much money on these huge projects, they need to be able to promote them in different areas of the world that might not be as welcoming to people of color, people of different gender or sexual identities, people with disabilities. So they're trying to make it as like commercial as possible. And right now in the world, disability is not seen as super commercial because I think the lens of
Oh,
disability often is like it doesn't affect you because you don't have this disability, or it's not going to affect you. This is their problem. This is the dwarfism community's issue. This is the autistic community's issue. This is the, and it's universal. We're just people still. um, and things that, um, like accessibility items and things like the ADA and stuff do impact everybody. And discrimination against disabled people does circle back to discrimination overall against everybody. I also think that people, I hope that in the future we'll move towards a world where people want to learn about people who don't look like them or who live different identities or experiences than them instead of being stuck in this echo chamber of, well, I can't connect with that because I'm not this or I'm not connected. Because it's like disabled people are expected to do all of that. We connect with people's stories and experiences all the time that don't align with our own lived experience, and we exist fine. But I think on the flip side of that, that's not the norm. That's not the expectation. Um, so I think that it's like a twofer with like getting the world on the right page, and then um, I think once that happens, Hollywood's just a money making industry, so they'll fold as soon as they realize that those. And I think we're starting to see that with certain groups. I know that like certain types of disabilities and have seen a lot more representation in media. I know plus sized actors have gotten over the years a lot more visibility in media and like runway and fashion spaces. Um, I know like the Black community has also seen some amazing advancements, like the two biggest openings for original projects since the pandemic have been by Black filmmakers. So Jordan Peele and Ryan Coogler. That's like huge. In the last 5 years, the biggest projects to come out of Hollywood to have the biggest theater debuts have been by Black creatives when that was just not the norm, prior to that. So
10 years
yeah,
ago. Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's one of those things that it's progress is slow, and that's why I think I am sometimes more focused on not trying to fix the industry, but to create my own stuff and to just educate, educate, educate. Because I think that at the end of the day, that's going to hold more than trying to like internally fix Hollywood from the inside out and like try to, you know, tell them that they should be doing better because it's like they're just going after the
Right.
dollar and the dollar leads back to the
Yep.
general public. So it's them ultimately that we have
Yep.
to get on board. And I think like having big platforms on social media has been a big contributor to even just like studios and people interested in my documentary because we're looking for more producers and more funding right now behind the scenes. And now that I have a platform, they're like, okay, well, listen, because that adds like those are people who have money. The people who follow
Yeah.
you are consumers, and that's all that these companies and studios and whatnot care about is the consumer. So I think that's why I'm just more focused
True.
on front-facing stuff because I know a world where we have studio executives with dwarfism or different disabilities, people working in these offices and casting. I think that's a huge component is like casting, but casting has to answer to executives. Like they're just doing whatever the producers and executives are telling them. And if they're telling them no disabled people or cast it a certain way or cast it with the most Instagram followers or cast it, they're gonna do that. Like it's not gonna matter if a little person or a person in a wheelchair or whatever is talented. They're just not gonna call them in. Um, so I think in an ideal world, we have if you step outside, you see a wide variety of people, right? And when you go to Hollywood and you see the same person, you see like one type of person, one type of experience celebrated on camera, off camera. You see opportunities being given to one type of person. So I think that it's really, hopefully, in the future going to reflect the actual diversity in the world. People like to pretend that inclusion is DEI, but it's like, no, it's just literally representing the world outside within your own organizations. And I think
Yeah.
once they realize that's going to make them more money as well, like the biggest demographic to go to the movies the most frequently are black people. Like, but you rarely ever see films cast people with black people in it or be led or directed or produced or opportunities given to that community. So it's like very interesting when you like see the business side of it all to see how skewed it is to one direction. Um, which is why again I just feel like it's so important at a certain point to just like make your own stuff, and I'm so inspired by people in the past who have done that. Like Quinta Brunson did the same thing. She was like working at BuzzFeed, stopped working there, was auditioning for stuff, and was like, I'm not going to spend my life auditioning for things, and started creating her own stuff. Issa Rae did the same thing. Like these are amazing individuals who have forged their own path by doing what they know is what they believe to be true and representative of what they want to see in the market and what they want to see in the industry. And now you have like Abbott Elementary, one of the biggest shows, and you have Issa Rae
Right.
writing and directing and starring in films. Like you have Jordan Peele and Ryan Coogler like breaking records and creating a lot of change. So I hope in the future that we'll see more representation, and I hope that it becomes less of like a trigger for so many people.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay, are you ready for my very last question?
Yes.
Okay. So I always ask people this question because the answers are different every single time. Nobody's ever repeated an answer.
Love that.
So I'm really excited to see yours. Um, so my main demographic, as we talked about a little bit, is kids on social media. And usually ages 13 to 18, but I have a feeling it's probably younger. Some of them are like my age, like 18 to 24, but a lot of them are like younger teenagers. So I get a lot of comments all the time, usually from disabled teens, or non-disabled teens, and they're like, how do I figure out self-love? How do I get self-confidence? How do I build self-confidence? Or how do I figure out how to advocate for myself or be more independent or things like that? So my question for you is, what would you tell those kids and or who may or may not be listening or watching this, and or what would you tell yourself at that age?
I think it's really important to put things in perspective and remember that the way that people treat you in general is not a reflection of reality half the time. It's a reflection of how they've been raised, what the media is celebrating. Um, I think it's really helped getting older and see how much things change over time in terms of what's considered popular, what's considered attractive, what's considered. And once you realize that those things exist in kind of like a different world that doesn't necessarily you have to conscribe to, just truly being yourself and just figuring out what do you like and remembering that like we all have just one body and it's not worth spending your life hating it or feeling like an outcast or feeling like you can't do this because I'm disabled and I can't wear that or I can't look like this or I can't express myself this way. Like it's just not worth it. And I think just finding people who see you for who you are is the most important as well if you don't have that level of self-confidence because it's important to have people to snap you out of any type of like insecurities you might have and um any type of like body dysmorphia. I know can be really hard when you have a disability. Um but I think that it's really important to surround yourself by people who see you for who you are, which is why I do think the internet has been such an amazing place because it allows you to connect with people who might not be accessible to you in real life. Um, I know I'm inspired by so many amazing little people who are just killing it and like truly living their lives in their bodies and existing, and that inspires me. But yeah, I think just real. I think it's one of those things you have to like. It's a journey for sure. It's not like a something you can just be like, I'm gonna be confident with myself today. I'm gonna look in the mirror and love myself today. Like you just really have to learn to get in the routine of doing that, and being aware of when you're being a bully to yourself or when you're around people who are being a bully to you, even if it's in subtle ways. Um, and yeah, just know that it's a journey and it does get easier as you get older. That's why I'm like, I could never, people who like yearn for their youth again, I'm like, you wanted to be in, like, you know, like getting older is the best thing because you realize how many like little things don't matter, especially when it comes to how you look or like if you think that you're allowed to. I think often as disabled people, we limit ourselves sometimes, or we think that we don't deserve to be in certain spaces or whatever, and that can come from things like discrimination or ableism. So that's totally fair. But I think again, getting older is realizing like how to combat that. I think being in community and following and knowing other disabled people, and people from other marginalized communities as well, not just your own, can help you learn tips and tricks as well. Um, so yeah, I think just keeping an open mind, keeping an open heart, and being aware that we are our own worst critic. As mean as ableist and discriminatory as other people could be to us, we will always be meaner to ourselves. So at least take
It's true.
your own. I mean, we all. I'm sure you do as well. Like it's suffer from internalized ableism sometimes. Like sometimes I catch myself where I'm like, why are you and I think that if you're older, obviously this is not accessible if you're a young person, but some young people do. Like if you are able to get like a therapist, like if I know sometimes young people are like their parents or they have access to that, but they're like, I don't want to go to therapy. Like I've heard that a few times, and I'm like, if you are in the privileged situation where you can, talk to someone. Like
Please.
I have a therapist who is not disabled, and she has helped me so much. Um, just like calling out my own ableism as well, and like calling out thought processes that are harmful that I think about my body or things that I wasn't even aware that I was like, I'm like, oh wow, that is kind of mean to say about myself, or that is kind of like. So I think that just like if you have, whether it be a therapist, a school counselor, a mentor, a teacher, um, even a good friend, like don't bottle it all up because it's important to be able to talk about these things, even if they're embarrassing. We're all going through our own, even able bodied people, like I think also realizing that able bodied people and non disabled people go through all of these same things in a different, like, it's just a different side of the coin, you know? It's a different side of the coin. Like, they
True.
go through their own body dysmorphia. They battle with depression and anxiety relating to how they look, how they talk, how they act. It could be the most conventionally attractive, look like a model, and they could still be like crying themselves to sleep every single night because of their own. I'm awkward in public, or people always are staring at me and I'm nervous, or I'm shy, or I don't know how to talk to people, or I don't like the way I dress, or I'm not this, or I'm not that, or I'm not interesting, or I'm a loser, or I'm like, you'd be surprised at how many like seemingly people who have it together are just like not, don't have it together. So
Yeah, it's
don't
true.
compare yourself to anybody else. Don't like put yourself in a hierarchy of like, well, there's them and then there's me down here. I'm like a this. Or like don't do all of that. Just like realize that we all
Yeah.
one day are gonna die. Like it's not gonna matter. Like no one's gonna be like, oh,
It's
this
true.
disabled person who ranked this on the list of no one's gonna care. They're just gonna care about you. And like if you looking back, like I know it's so grim, but like do you want to be known as someone who didn't try to step into their truth and try to live life to their fullest extent? Or are you gonna like love the person where like, wow, they, have body pains and they grew up, being bullied, but they ended up realizing that they're badass and they're a cool person and they have cool interests and they were really good at this and they were really good friends and they really liked this one show. They used to quote it all the time and they used to make people laugh and they like Yeah, but just like live your life. Live your life.
It's true. Yeah, 100%. Aubrey, thank you so much for being here. I really
Of
appreciate
course.
you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course, anytime. Anytime you want to come on, let me know.
Period.
We'll make it happen. And thank you for watching and listening to this episode of The View from 4 Feet and 3 Inches. Please make sure to like, subscribe, give a 5-star rating depending on where you're watching or listening. Make sure to hit that bell so that you are notified every single time I post a new video. Go follow me on all my other social media because I do post on Instagram, Facebook Reels, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts every single day. I have a YouTube vlog that comes out every Wednesday and a podcast episode here on The View from 4 Feet and 3 Inches that comes out every Sunday. Thanks so much for watching and listening, and we will see you next time. Bye!
Bye.